This is the Digital Trust Podcast. In every episode, we strive to bring support to those of you who serve on the front lines and in the trenches of data and technology. We endeavor to bring understanding to the under-resourced and underappreciated, help remove your stress, and provide relief to your pain. Welcome to the Digital Trust Podcast. Sit down with us as we give you hard-hitting advisory conversations to help you build digital trust with your stakeholders and clients, and actionable takeaways to help you become a digitally trustworthy organization.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Digital Trust Podcast. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the show, and I am very happy to have with us today Phil Guerin. He is with Cavelo, which is a company that focuses on data protection and attack surface management. Phil specifically there is, I'm going to just read it, Senior Sales Engineer and Technical Account Manager at Cavelo. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Thank you, Christian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Beautiful. So I've seen some of the videos that you've posted on LinkedIn where you're walking down the street having a conversation with the audience about really relevant, timely topics and musings that you have around technology and cybersecurity. So I'm hoping that you can take us on one of those walks with you today and dive in. And maybe we can start with a once upon a time back in the early days of Phil's career. What was your kind of origin story into technology and cybersecurity, and what were the challenges that you encountered and overcame, and the lessons that you learned from all of that season?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for subjecting yourself to my little walk through the park. I apologize if you had to work your way through any of that. I'm going to stay a little bit limited. I'm not going to go through like the whole professional backstory and stuff like that, but we can kind of talk about that over time. And as this goes, I think as the conversation develops, that is more interesting anyway. My origin, kind of coming right out of school, was working at a small research company in London, Ontario. I worked on a small development team as a part of an IT team. And one of the jobs was protect the business, which was really protect the revenue. That's all that it was about 15 plus years ago. We had a website that sold IT research to CIOs, CISOs, and executives, kind of like a smaller version of Gartner, to think about it that way. Now, protecting the business was contribute to the website and keep the website up, because every hour the website was down, there was significant costs associated to that. But that's what protect the business meant then. My once upon a time analogy is, back at that point, this conversation was very simple. Protect the business meant uptime. All of the infrastructure for that business, I mean, all of it, 100%, was in the four walls of one building. All of the servers, the two of them that existed, were in the basement. And I personally knew the two gentlemen who had the key to the room to get in there. You could literally see your entire attack surface. You could put your hands on it. There was so little data involved compared to today that you could review all of it. So it was small, it was simple, it was all in one place. People could talk about it in simple senses. And then so the solutions were simply keep the systems up. All we had to worry about was internet connectivity in a part of the city with bad power. Right? The most creative thing that we ever had to do when that became a persistent problem was come up with a way to route the website traffic through one of our smart guys' home routers on a home server. Like, everything was so easy. But the problem is, and stop me anywhere here, things get a little bit more complicated and a little bit more complicated and a little bit more complicated over time. So those two servers in the basement became two servers in the basement and 5 servers in a co-located facility. And then over time, the 2 plus the 5 became 2 plus 5 plus 1 to 3 different cloud services. Now, all of a sudden, we're moving functionality into different places. We're moving data storage into different places. Different people are accessing things in different ways at different times. And because it happens slowly, it's like a boiled frog syndrome. Each little step creates a new spot solution. Each little step creates a new spot solution. And my job is, okay, well, I'm supposed to protect the business. At one point, it was uptime. Then it becomes uptime of different systems. Then it becomes access controls of different environments and different systems. So then you have to learn different spot check tools, get very good with the tools, and then that's how you protect the business.
So thinking about the lessons learned and kind of that hat of being in an IT department, in today's IT department, right? So you have these IT practitioners and they're trying to meet the ask of the organizations that they're working for, right? So there are things on their plate that maybe they don't like doing or don't have the skill set for, and they're just not in their wheelhouse. What kind of encouragement or advice would you give to IT folks in that scenario?
I've definitely gone through a lot of that myself. Again, like putting myself back into like a younger mindset of this stuff. I'm coming into the market. I want to be professionally successful because I want to be personally successful, because my belief is if I can balance those two things, I can have some level of agency in my life. Simplistic thinking, that's what young people like to do. But the fallacy becomes if I get really, really good at these tools, someone else is mapping the tools to the problem. I just need to get really, really good at the tools. And now just like the problem slowly grows over time, those tools slowly become less and less effective as the problem space grows. And if I'm focusing myself on professional growth and professional success on learning the tools, I'm going to slowly drift off to the side, and somebody else coming in with a slightly different tool focus is now going to be more effective than me, right? They're going to get to work on the different projects, and they're going to get, different nods in different meetings. And that's going to hurt me as a professional. It's going to hurt me personally. So again, I fall down the fallacy of just certification after certification, tool after tool. And what I learned over time, and anything learned over time is painful because time takes a long time, but I would get frustrated. We were speaking about this. I would be sitting in rooms sometime, and maybe with a little bit bigger of a head than warranted, but it's like some of these senior people, I feel like I can accomplish the same things as what they're doing. Like there's nothing in their project scope that they're doing that I can't be doing. But what dawned on me was how they communicated about the problem, how they communicated what they were using, why they were using, and how they were using it to solve the business problem. And what I noticed is those senior professionals, they were the only ones that were really questioning and asking questions on the business problem itself. Right? My young self was like, protect the business. Okay, just run off and just go immerse myself in a tool set because I'm just believing that the mapping makes sense. But just like I get confused as a young person or just a person in technology in a growing problematic space, so do the business people. And then so what I found is the technicians over time, you get frustrated because you're being said, here's a problem that I need you to solve for the business, and here's the tools that you need to use to get that done. And now if the problem space diverges from what the tooling can do for you, you have to be a very savvy communicator from a technical perspective to be able to get through the minds of the business people trying to get you to take those steps. It's like, because from their perspective is you have everything that you need to get it done. And that might be the case, and that might be the case 5 years ago, and that might be the case 10 years ago, but the problem space changes. Everyone's trying to solve a different version of protect the business, and everyone has a different idea of what these tools can do. And then so communication, something I didn't value as a younger person, is something that I realize is just probably the most paramount thing in security now, because there are so many options and there's so many nuances to all these different problems.
Yes. And so not just technical communication and IT communication, but somehow business communication. So what I'm wondering is, how can you as an IT practitioner, whether you're an IT director, IT manager, or even as sysadmin, how can you align your efforts with the business in terms of things like understanding what business processes you support, and then the other side of that being the communication side and becoming literate in business communication so that you can get a seat at the decision-making table on the business itself and have some influence there?
I think the best thing that I've come to, and this isn't really just me speaking, this is advice that I've been given by many colleagues and mentors over the years. You have to just keep asking why. I've been very fortunate where a number of the organizations that I've worked with over the years, they've always not only put out like a fluffy roadmap, but the call to action to all the employees was, if there's anything that you're doing that you don't understand how it relates to these top 5 goals of the company, keep asking questions until you understand how what you're doing actually moves the needle. So if I was told that in that first job, in that first environment, go protect the business, the first question is, what does that mean? Like, what are the bad things that can happen to the business? The tough thing is sometimes that conversation is going to be receptive and other times it's not. It's going to depend on what your politics look like. It's going to depend on what your ecosystem looks like. But that's where effective communication comes into play. It's not about being right. It's about asking the right questions at the right time to the right people to try to drive some understanding, because you don't want to tell the person asking you to do something that they're wrong and they don't understand the problem. But you have to find a way to bring them to that understanding together by asking questions about the limitations of what you're currently trying to do. Some of the best negotiation advice I've read and heard over the years is when confronted with something that is like an impossible task or an insurmountable task, that sounds great. How am I supposed to go about doing that? And then use that as a back and forth conversation.
Then you go from being a tool-focused technician that's frustrated into keep asking why, going down that path to a leader that has influence in the business.
And I think just to add to that, I think part of the expectation that you should have is you're going to have to spend some amount of time doing things that you don't really want to do. You're going to have to work on some tools that aren't the sexiest thing in the space. You're going to have to solve problems in a way that are very, very pragmatic, because you're going to need to do what you're asked to do in a positive way, in a forward momentum way, so that way you have the ability to show the limitations and the weaknesses to what you're doing as you move through it. Nobody really wants to have the conversation without anybody actually trying to do anything. They want to view the problems as they're happening. So you have to be willing to dive in and pick up the shovel and start digging. And then through that process, it's like, hey, if we got an excavator in here, this is going to speed up a lot of this process. All the injuries we keep having week over week are probably going to go away. And you guys could probably take on 10x the business. I don't understand why we're not having this conversation, but you're not having that conversation in the truck. You're having it out in the dirt.
Love it, Phil. We will end this episode on that note. I really appreciate you laying out how IT practitioners can be more effective in aligning with the business and also in communicating, and that progression of really, I guess, how to start that journey. So that is awesome, Phil. Thanks for taking us down the street in one of your conversations there. Great to have you on the show, and thank you to our viewers and listeners for tuning in and spending your time with us today.
Thanks for joining us today on the Digital Trust Podcast. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with someone you care about. And if you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter, please click the link in the description to subscribe. And to put your mind at ease, our newsletter will include episode summaries with key points and actionable takeaways, plus a heads up on the upcoming episode guests. Rest assured, it won't be a spammy sales message, and we will never sell or share your information. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.